Angelique, and I want to welcome you back to our continuing series on QCT6 support. In a previous video, you learned some of the features of QCT6 Plus. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the features that are available in QCT6 Pro. Just so you know, QCT6 Pro adds on the features of PatternCAD, the record function, and QuiltCAD. In this video specifically though, I'm going to start going over with you some of the features of PatternCAD. Specifically, we're going to look at some of the buttons that are on the left column, at the top, and also just a few tips and tricks in using the draw features. So we're going to start by opening up our QCT6 program. It detects that we are not connected, so all I have to do is click OK, and we're just going to boot our program. We want to make sure that we are in QCT6 Pro, and when we are, we have these extra features here. And like I said, today we're going to work in PatternCAD. So we're going to open up that software. And I'm going to start by just kind of going over the different buttons and what they do and playing a little bit with the software so I can show you what each of these things do to help you get started on PatternCAD and start creating your own designs. To make this easy, I'm just going to open up a previous pattern that I created. And so when you have nodes on, all of these little circles that you see are called nodes. And so we're able to see each and every one of those. Now that's really helpful, especially if I zoom in, which is what the plus button does. But if I want to be able to see what my pattern looks like without all of those nodes covering it, I can click the node button and the nodes go away. And so now I can see what I've actually drawn out as my design. If I click on trim lines and there are any trim lines, then I would actually see those appear on here. So let me do a quick little drawing so that I can show that. I'm just going to squiggle around a little bit to create a couple of different designs. Right. And so as you can see, because these are not connected, we get this blue line here. And if I want to see that blue line, then I click on the trim line button. If I want it to just disappear, the trim line still exists when we go to quilt, but it will just take it off so it's not in my way when I'm trying to do anything with that. So that is what the trim line button does. Mirrors, when we get into talking about how to do mirrors, this will kind of turn on and turn off those particular features that you set. The snap to grid, the snap selected and snap ends are when we've highlighted specific nodes and we want it to stick in those different places. And so we'll go into more details with those as we actually start to build out some example designs. And then apply the mirrors here is available. We also have access to switching layers. Let's say I have this pattern up and I want to do something else. I can swap this and you can see this now is blue. And so that means this is no longer active. And when I draw something else, let's say I just want to draw a box or whatever, that's now the active layer. And so I can swap between those two things, or I can merge them together and they both become active. So that's what those two buttons there do. So that's just kind of an overview of our left column buttons. Next, we're going to look at our row buttons here, the top row buttons. And so we have the select pattern. You kind of saw me hit that a little bit. This is going to allow me to go to patterns that already exist in the software. So you have the same things that you have if you wanted to do like an edge to edge or a block design, and you can grab any of those as a starting point. And open those up, and if I wanted to add to that, I could. Or if it's a previous pattern that I had done, I can throw that in there as well. So that gives you that information. The big red X is to close out the program, so we're not going to click on that. And then as I'm developing different graphics that I want to quilt, I may periodically save those files. That way you've saved your work and you don't have to start over from scratch. Like in other parts of the program, we have the undo button. So if I've drawn something And then I draw, and I don't like that second part I started. I can undo and just leave that part. Maybe I do like it. I hit the redo button. We do have tools that you can use, and this is going to be very helpful as we're starting to build things like using backgrounds and so on. And it's just a way to get to some of those preferences that you'll also find up in your Microsoft toolbar that you see up here for the program. This allows you to zoom in. I can zoom out, or I can fit it to the screen. It's going to give me this warning. And if I want to continue or I don't, and I can see like, don't bother me again with this. I just like to leave those things up just in case. And so it's going to take it back to fit however I have this and get me back to being able to see the overview of all of it. I can also select certain sections and copy it. So maybe I want to select just maybe this little part here, and I can copy that, and you'll know because the nodes, when your nodes view, you'll be able to see that they're, instead of being open circles, they're solid circles. You see what you've copied, and you can click that and then paste that to your heart's content. The X here is going to basically take everything off the screen so I can start over. Again, good idea to save progressively as you do things in case, but even if I hit X and I didn't mean to, I have at least an option to undo that at least once. And you can print out your patterns if you are hooked up to a printer. So that kind of overviews those. I am going to kind of go over a few of these here. Your file, pretty similar to a lot of the things you'll see in most programs, so I'm not going to go into too much details there. Same thing with edit. You can undo, redo, select all. A couple different things is the difference between selecting the pattern versus the mirror. If you want to clear layers, very similar to what I kind of showed you with the column button here, but you can have a couple extra choices like copy to bottom layer, or merge top and bottom together, which way you want it to go. So that's there. Background is probably going to be one of the more useful ones, and I will show you that here in a little bit, but you can actually load images, you can fade them, so if you want to do some tracing, grayscale them, invert them, and I'll show you how that can be useful a little bit later in this segment. And then you have some of the tools as you're doing things like your start point and end point. And as we, again, progress through, I'll show you how those change a little bit. And there is also the help feature. So some of these are duplicated in other places, and some of them are not. And I just wanted to kind of bring those to your attention. All right, so let's really get into the features that help you do your designing. And you're going to find those over here. And what I'm going to refer to is the right column buttons and features, because we also have some checkboxes and so on. And so the first one is called pattern. You have a couple different buttons here. As you can see, it changes the menus that are down here. Each of these 5 buttons are going to change what your choices are. Starting with draw, when I'm in draw, I have choices of line, spline, arc, and parabola. And then I also have choices in node spacing. When this is off, it is going to go from one node to a second node. If I'm drawing curves, then I want to control the number of nodes that are available. So maybe I want one node every time I move the mouse cursor. And so I would turn that on, and I can adjust what those nodes are. But for right now, I'm going to turn those off. Remove and add here are once I've kind of drawn. If I don't like, I've gone too many nodes, I can start to remove them one by pressing that button, or I can increase them. Maybe I want to add a node in between 2 things that I've drawn because I want to kind of fiddle with the curve or something, and I don't like exactly how it's come in. And then you also have this little checkbox here. If I want independent drawings, I do not want this checked. So what I'm saying is I don't want my things to connect. I don't want it to be continuous. Now, when I don't have something continuous, what that means when the program takes what I've done and wants to go stitch it on the machine, it's going to create those trim lines. So it's going to tell the machine, I'm going to stitch this design, I'm going to stop, I'm going to drag some thread over, move to the next part, drop my lock stitches in, and I'm going to start the second design. That can be very useful depending on the kind of designs that you're coming up with. But if you want to just worry about kind of drawing something out, like you're trying to make your own pantograph or something, then you want it to be continuous. And so clicking on that is going to allow you to draw smoothly what it is you want to do. So let me demonstrate the difference between those two. So continuous, if I am just doing, say, a line, I could drop my start here so you can see where my cursor is, and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to get, in this case, I only have it set for 2 nodes, and it's going to continue, all right? So it's going to create those 2 nodes. When I decide I want to go over here, I'm not dragging anymore. I can literally click down here, and it's going to connect from this last one to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So I can zigzag all over the place, and in continuous, it is going to connect those nodes for me once I've drawn the first 2, right? When it's not continuous, so I draw, let's say I drag that first line, because the first 2 nodes you have to drag, and then when I go to do the next one, I have to drag again. And now you can see this node and this node are not connected. They are independent drawings. And so when it takes your drawing and turns it into the program that is going to actually stitch it out, it's going to do this as 2 separate stitches. So again, if I click the trim lines, you'll now see that blue trim line. So that's the difference between continuous and non-continuous lines. I would say for the majority of stuff that I do, I'm probably going to do continuous. Right? Let's do a spline so I can show you the difference. I'm going to draw out a line just so we can see that. And I'm going to draw out the 2 points here. So let me turn that trim line off. And right now it looks like it's the same thing. So this is where your edit that's available in Pattern is going to help. So I am going to drag across these 2 nodes, which now go into solids. This is the end one. And so I can grab this and I can move it around and nothing's going to happen, okay? As far as other than just placement. When I'm done, there's an unselect all button, and that's just going to get rid of what I've selected. So now I'm going to select this one. All right, so remember this was the spline that I drew. So when I select it, notice that those 2 blue squares, so just like on this one I was able to grab it and move it, I'm also going to be able to grab and move these as well. But the difference is that I get to control my curve, right? So I have 2 parts of this, right? I can have it off to the side because I've got 2. I'm not always going to get a perfect arc. I can really change by dragging those around the shape of that. And so that's what creates my spline. I have those 2 things that I can move. They move together, but they don't move in such a way that I always have exactly the same mirrored shape, if you will. If I want to create an arc, so that no matter what I pull, it's always going to be even from the center part of the arc to both of those nodes. Then I select that one. Again, I will highlight. Now you'll see I only have one of those little blue rectangles. And so I can move this one to change the size of my arc. But I can only really go up and down with it unless I had a vertical line that I could go side to side. But notice I can't change the shape of the arc. I can only change the size and the depth of that arc compared to where this one I can actually move where I want that curvy feature to be. And then there's the parabola. So we'll start out the same way with the parabola. We'll go to Edit. We'll highlight those two nodes, and now you can see that I can get a little bit more perkiness or mountainous to it, right? It's more of a parabola shape. It's going to create not really an arc, right? You're going to get the straighter lines that finally come up to a curve to create a peak or a valley in that. So that kind of shows you the difference of those tools as you're kind of working through them. So let me clear that out. Now, what if I really want something, I just really want to free design something, like I've got a pen and I'm drawing on a piece of paper. So that's where the node spacing is really helpful. So you click on that, you click on your line, and you can see as I'm drawing with my mouse, it is just following what I'm doing, right? So I kind of squeeze that over a little bit. I don't kind of love that. So this is where I can undo stuff, right? Now, I didn't stop as I was going, so I didn't worry about having the continuous on, but I'm going to show you something. I'm going to get rid of all of these that I don't like. That's one way I could do it. Another way is that I can, since there's a lot that I want to remove, I can use the edit and I can drag the box here and highlight all those ones that are connected and click the delete button and just get rid of all of them, right? So because this is so big in the way I started to draw, and then as I went through, I decided I wanted to add the V and the E to the love. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I can do that. And I'm going to click on continuous because I stopped drawing. But when I finish this design, I want this design to stitch continuously. So I'm going to click the continuous so I can continue drawing. And then I don't have to worry about being perfectly lined up on that last one. It's going to kind of fill in for me. So let me kind of continue making my love. Oops, I right-clicked. Oops, I don't like that when I right-clicked, I messed up, right? So I can undo that one and then just kind of continue to maybe add a little swirl or something there if that's what I want, all right? So I've finished drawing out my design and I'm gonna unclick my notes so I can see what it looks like. And it's a little shaky, right? So there are some things that I can do to help smooth this out a little bit. So I'll put my nodes back on and I'll go to my edit screen and I'm just gonna highlight little areas where I feel like it could need to be smoothed a little bit. And that's when I can click this smooth button here. And that's just gonna help round them out a little bit to make it feel like it's less drawn and a little bit more professional, if you will. Make sure to unselect as you go. And if they're pretty good and there's not much it can do, like you can see that one smoothed a little bit more. Maybe I don't love how tall this got, right? In the way, because this is so much taller than this one here. So maybe I decide I want to kind of get rid of some of these things and drop this down a little bit. So I can highlight those and I can delete them and kind of get more into the shape that I want. And again, anytime I want to really see what it looks like, I can click in between the nodes view and the non-nodes view. So I'm liking that a little bit better. Let's see if I can smooth this E out. All right, just to kind of give that a little bit more. And you know, it's a little hard to do it as one design, but just kind of pick and choose the places that you want to smooth out until you really get what you like here. And this is where I kind of restarted, so that's really going to kind of help that even out a little bit more and so on. Okay, so that's smooth. With delete, you have to have at least 2 nodes selected to be able to delete anything. So let's say I decided to add a couple of lines and I don't like them. I'm going to click on edit. If I just click on the one and I click delete, nothing's going to happen. If I only want to remove one, that's where I would use the -1 here. Okay, -1, -1. Or if I decide I want to put them back, the undo. Right? But if I want to kind of get rid of a couple of them, I can highlight them individually, as you see there, or the way I did, this would unhighlight. And sometimes you just find it easier to try to do one at a time when you're working in really tight quarters, and that's where kind of making your pattern bigger or smaller with the zoom in functions help. And then I'm able to delete those. So you do have to have more than one selected to get that to go away. So again, I only have the one here. It's going to be hard to do that. But if I want to get rid of it, maybe I zoom in so I can easily highlight another one of them, and now I can get rid of that line. Now, the simplify is going to reduce wherever it can the number of nodes, because as you can see, they're really on top of each other, and that could make it hard for me to do any editing. So I'm going to just see if I can simplify this, and as I do that, you can see now where there's less of a curve, it's reduced the number of nodes and is able to still maintain that shape. So that's what Simplify does for you. So we also have the ability to do some sizing. So I can select everything here. So far, I've only been selecting little parts that I want to do. And so maybe I want to make this bigger, or I want to make it smaller. So here I have the size function. I can set the steps. So if I want to do teeny tiny little movements, small all the way to large. So it's like, whoa, it's really going to kind of do big jumps for me. Even jumbo might take me off the screen there. Tiny is just going to move things a little bit at a time until I get what I like. Small is going to do it in a little bit larger movement. So you decide what size increments you want to move with that. As you can see, I can expand it up and down. I can make it wider vertically. I can squeeze it tighter together, and I can make it smaller. All right, so just, as you're drawing, sometimes things don't, you tend to over-exaggerate a little bit, and you really want to kind of make that tighter. So let me just kind of get this something that I like here, and I'm kind of happy with that. I think I might want to move this little section down, so let me go back to the select and unselect it and see if there's anything here I can do to kind of move this in a position I like better. Maybe I don't love this curvature as much, so I can kind of move this up a little bit. And of course, that's giving me kind of some funky areas. So how can I fix that? Well, let's unselect. And so I can see that I've got kind of some crazy thing that's going here when I was moving it. So I might find it just easier to kind of delete a couple of those out wherever I can. And now you'll see that I kind of have two separate ends, but I want them to connect. So I'm going to highlight those two, and I'm going to go to my left column menu, and I'm going to click Snap Selected. And what that's going to do is going to take those two and basically continue them together. And so now I've only got the one, and I could go back and smooth that out and get that flow back in there, right? So that's a really useful tool in PatternCAD. Here it got a little crunchy, a little bit more zigzaggy, so I might try to smooth that out. It's not really doing it for me, so maybe I just want to take some of this out here. And maybe I want to kind of move these a little bit. So until I get kind of the shape that I want. And now maybe I want to kind of add or insert some additional nodes here. So I can click that insert button between these two, and you can see it connected them, highlight them again, and the more nodes I have, the smoother I can make that. So I can just, highlight and insert until I feel like I have enough nodes that I can smooth out the issue that I had here. Just like delete, I do need to have a couple selected. So I think that might fix my problem. So I'll go back to smooth. There we go. Much happier with how this is coming out. Now, let's say I want to flip this completely, right? I can select everything. So I'll turn the nodes back on so I can see that selected, and I can flip this, and it will give me choices of how to flip it. So if I want to flip it backwards or horizontal here, I can do that. I can flip it upside down. Maybe I want to mirror it, right? So I can kind of create that. Maybe I copy, I zoom this out. You can see how it made that copy for me. Now I move this whole thing, right? And I want to select the second one that I just did. And I want to make it look like a mirror, right? So I could flip it this way. Now it looks like I've, tried to mirror this design, like if I had it on water or something. So that kind of gives you an idea of maybe why you would want to use it or so on. So that lets you do that. I can also rotate it. Maybe I don't want my design to be love from left to right, how I read. Maybe I've got an angled block that I might want it in. So I could do rotating, and I can rotate it either direction. When the reverse button is clicked, it's going to turn it counterclockwise. And I can do that in increments of 5, 15, 45, or even 1. Right? And I can do it all the way around if I want, or I can rotate it the other direction. Right? So all up to me how I want it to be. I know that was a lot of information about PatternCAD, but hopefully you have enough to get started and feel inspired to give it a try. In the next video, I'm going to show you some of the features we didn't look at today, specifically how to take this design that we created and turn it into a continuous pantograph. I'm also going to go over with you how to use the easy shapes and the mirror function. So I hope you join me. Until then, if you like this video, we would love it if you would click and subscribe to our YouTube channel.